When my son Shepherd was 3 years old, he started walking with a limp. By the time he was diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic arthritis a month later, he was having trouble getting out of bed. We saw the top doctors in New York City, and they told us that while there was no cure for what Shepherd had, there were medicines that could treat his symptoms, and that if we didn't give Shepherd these drugs, he could become disabled. And of course, he'd still be in pain. So we started him on powerful immune suppressants. But these drugs come with worrying risks, including lymphoma and liver disease. They also made Shepherd feel sick, and they did little for his arthritis pain. He would lie on the couch for several days after taking his pills. It was as if he had the flu every week. But this was our only option, unless it wasn't. I heard about another mom whose son recovered from arthritis 6 weeks after she stopped feeding him food with gluten and dairy in it and gave him probiotics, omega-3s, and other supplements. When I first heard about what she did, I dismissed it as frou-frou alternative medicine. I figured that it couldn't work or doctors would know about it. But when you watch a little guy lie there on the couch, it's pretty tough to accept that that's how it's going to be. Evidence or not, the other mom's plan wasn't risky, so we decided to try it. We couldn't not try it. One morning, 6 weeks into our experiment, I went into Shepherd's room to help him out of bed, as I'd been doing. He sprang up himself and said, "Mommy, my knees don't hurt anymore." Now, we have no way of knowing what made Shepherd better. It's possible the medication kicked in late, but there are compelling reasons to believe that it was the diet. A couple times, Shepherd accidentally had bread, and his arthritis pain returned immediately. And when I dug into the medical literature myself, I found several studies suggesting that the diet we gave Shepherd could have a positive impact on autoimmune arthritis. Researchers have since told me that inflammation in the body can be linked to inflammation in the gut, and that can originate with a food intolerance or a decimated gut bacteria population, perhaps from taking antibiotics. And we're learning more every day about how critical this population, our microbiome, is to our overall health. We eventually took Shepherd off the drugs, which we were never expected to be able to do, and still his arthritis did not come back. He's now a happy, wisecracking 10-year-old. He likes drawing comic strips, he's in the running club, and he doesn't remember what arthritis felt like. So the thing that may very well have saved him came from another mom, which got me thinking that the answer to an illness may lie beyond the knowledge of even the best doctors, and that if something hasn't been proven to work, it doesn't mean that it won't. No one has all the answers, which seems really obvious to me now, but I think it can be hard to recognize in the realm of medicine, where doctors' expertise is always going to be greater than our own. I came to believe that if you are facing a difficult health problem, or any problem, you have a choice to keep going when others say that you can't. In addition to being a stubborn parent, I'm a journalist. So after Shepherd recovered, I went looking for stories of people who faced daunting medical challenges and refused to give up. What I found became my book, The Other Side of Impossible. I met a woman with MS who was using a wheelchair. Available medications could no longer help her, so she decided to help herself. She read through medical studies and came up with a plan that involved eating 12 cups a day of fruits and vegetables. Within the year, she was riding a bike again. The mother of a boy with life-threatening food allergies refused to accept that there was no treatment for her son. So she moved across the country with 3 children and 2 dogs to pursue an experimental therapy that addressed the anxiety that haunts so many children with food allergies. A year later, that boy was eating everything. I met a little girl who, starting at the age of 3 months old, was knocked down by unrelenting seizures. The family tried everything Western medicine could offer and everything outside of it. Nothing worked. The girl's seizures kept getting worse, but her mom wouldn't give up. A full decade into their wrenching ordeal, they went to see yet another neurologist. That doctor suggested they do an MRI. The scan revealed a brain tumor. The tumor was removed, and that girl has not had a seizure since. So it's not about alternative medicine versus Western medicine. I actually think those categories are useless. It's about whatever works and persevering until you get there. Medicine is medicine. We can't know if others will be helped by these therapies until we study them, and actually some of that work is now underway. The therapy for food allergies has been so successful anecdotally that Boston Children's Hospital is now looking into it. But what's remarkable about the people I met is that they believe they get better before science had shown them the way. Whereas I had lucked into hearing about this thing that maybe would work and that we tried out of desperation. They were determined to solve the unsolvable. They had an extraordinary talent for hope, because of course you wouldn't persist without that. I came to think of them as the indomitables, which I realize sounds like they should be wearing capes, and perhaps they should. When I started my research, a couple of them had not had any luck yet, which is why I wanted to write about them. I wanted to show a range of outcomes, because that's how it is when you experiment. I remember when I met Annie, the mother of the girl with seizures. She was still struggling, and I didn't have hope for her. And then she proved me wrong when they finally vanquished those seizures. Another woman I met, who had severe rheumatoid arthritis, was handicapped by a painful limp when I met her. And then she too, over the course of 2 years, improved dramatically. While we can't draw conclusions from such a small sample, I wonder, can perseverance itself have an impact on whether we recover or not? If you think just about Annie and her little girl, how different their story would be now if Annie had given up even 5 years into it. I reached out to Dr. Jeffrey Rediger, a psychiatrist on the faculty of Harvard Medical School, and asked him if he thought perseverance, that bullheaded push for an answer, could influence our health. And he said yes. He said that the mind was a major reason why people got better. And he told me about a couple small but rigorous studies looking at people with cancer. And he said that the will to survive, the strength and commitment to one's health, seemed to be a major reason why some people recovered or lived longer than they were expected to. That's the kind of mindset that the indomitables had. They not only sought healing, they expected it. And that's exactly the right condition for bringing about the placebo effect. We know from medical studies that the placebo effect, real healing, is likely to happen just about any time you pursue recovery with confidence. Researchers who've looked at the placebo effect have seen patients with Parkinson's disease, autoimmune disease, anxiety, and pain get better when their only medicine is belief. We understand so little about how and why this comes about, and we really should be studying it more. So how do you come by perseverance and its partner, hope, when it's more reasonable to assume that you won't get better? Because to me, what's as incredible as coming back from a disease that's considered flat out irreversible is thinking you can in the first place. We don't have the science yet to be able to say where perseverance comes from and how we can all get it. But there is a study that offers some intriguing clues. Years ago at the University of Colorado, a group of rats was subjected to tiny shocks to their tails when they were adolescents, which sounds a little bit like high school to me. Some of the rats were able to turn the shock off by manipulating a little wheel. Other rats had no means of doing so. They were helpless. Then the scientists followed the rats for the rest of their lives. Luckily, rats don't live very long. And what they found was that the rats that had control over the shocks were, and these are their words, the scientists, not the rats, the rats were inoculated for life against helplessness. So when faced with difficulty later on, they didn't give up. So what the study suggests is that our early life experiences may come into play if we later hit a brick wall. That was not my experience when Shepard got sick. I took our doctor's word for it that we would be dealing with this for the rest of his life. I wasn't hopeful, and I didn't go looking to experiment. But now, if someone in my family got sick with an impossible illness, I would know to get to work. I know I'm not helpless, that we aren't. We have some control and an enormous amount of choice in terms of what kinds of therapies we pursue. So I'd make a long list of doctors, and I wouldn't stop there, because what the indomitables taught me is that perseverance can work. I remember talking to Annie, whose daughter had the seizures, back when they were still having a tough time, and I said, "How is it that you can keep going when you've had so many setbacks?" And she said, "Because she's not better yet." And I asked the son of the MS patient what it was that drove his mom, and he said, "Courage is knowing you're licked and doing it anyway." And I asked the woman who developed the allergy therapy, someone, by the way, who has no medical background. And I said, "What made you think that you could figure this thing out when the researchers who've dedicated their lives to it still haven't been able to?" You know what she said? She said, "That's not how I think. I think, what do I want to do?" Thanks.